Hello, BookTube. I went out very, very early again this morning, just like yesterday, to get errands done before the heat of the day set in. Just normal precautions that you take in October in New England when it's going to be 85 degrees with a steady humidity of 97%. You want to get your errands out of the way first because in the middle of the day you're going to be sweating and panting. You're going to be resting and hiding in air conditioning. You know, that's just the way it is in autumn in New England. But one of the errands that I did this morning was to go to the Brattle Bookshop. I went again 2 days in a row. But I say all the time, you could go every day to the Brattle and find a bunch of new stuff. Not only is the turnover enormous in the store, so every part of the store is being replenished every day, but also when you shop the outdoor sale lot of the Brattle, which is huge, it's thousands and thousands of books, even a practiced book spotter, your eye will blur after a while. You'll still look at lots of things, but you won't really take them in. So you can, even if the lot doesn't change at all, you will still sort of so-called see new things the next time you go. And that happened today. So I got a bunch of books. Now I was, once again, very lucky. I found a bunch of books for other people that I'm not going to be showing on this video. But I still found plenty of my own, including a couple of bits of Stevensoniana. A couple of books about Robert Louis Stevenson that aren't strictly biographies. I love that sort of, I love this author. I love that sort of thing. This first one is by Blantyre Simpson, and it's called Robert Louis Stevenson's Edinburgh Days. And it is lovely. It is just a lovely thing. It's got all kinds of old photographs and old locations, Stevenson locations. It's all about Stevenson's association with Edinburgh, and it's terrific. Just terrific. I read this thing. It was actually on the library shelf of a very old library that I belong to here in Boston. This thing came out. When did this come out? Or do I know? Well, it doesn't really say. But this would have been around 1914, 1915, something like that. And this still sat on the shelves up on the 5th floor of the Boston Athenaeum decades and decades ago. And I read it and loved it. Then, I've read lots of Robert Louis Stevenson biographical treatments since then, not only full-length biographies, one of which is in this room. Is it actually visible on these shelves? No, maybe not. But not only full-length biographies, but also treatments like this. And that's just a joy. So that's going to be a lot of fun to go over this again. And it's in one of these library plastic things here, so they won't be deteriorating at all. I'm very happy to have a copy of my own. Sort of thing you look at, you think you're never going to see it on your own, and then it shows up at the Brattle. The same thing is true of this next one. This is On the Trail of Stevenson. This is by Clayton Hamilton, and it's got original illustrations by Walter Hale all throughout here. So in addition to photographs, there are also pen and ink drawings of places that were significant to Stevenson. So this is actually a biography, but it's mainly the author tracing down, going himself to all the different places that were popular to Stevenson. And he opines at the beginning of this book that Stevenson was a wanderer, and wanderers tend not to put down deep roots, and therefore a lot of the places where they've lived are not reflected in their literature. He mentions Edgar Allan Poe as one example where you'd never guess the places that Poe lived from his literature. And he makes sure to say that Stevenson is not like that he's different from that. That his places are reflected very much in the places where he went. I think he puts it rather well. I'm never going to be able to find it. Well, he mentions at one point in this book that Stevenson is the most personal of writers. You always feel like you're right there with him when you're reading anything that he wrote. And I agree with that completely. It's going to be, I've never read this thing. This is also, I think, from the 19-teens. Is this going to tell me? Are you going to tell me anything at all about yourself? 1915. This is from 1915. So two pieces of Stevensoniana that I can just put on the shelf with all my other Stevenson books. Delightful. After I've read them, of course. I'm going to read the what is it called? On the Trail of Stevenson. I'm going to read that tonight. Then this next one, I've never seen this paperback for it before, but I love this book. Absolutely love it. I had it in hardcover for a long time. I always recommend it and / give it away to people when they ask me what is the best book on the Titanic disaster. The stereotypical response for 50 years has been The Night Lives On by Walter Lord. And it is a very good book. I believe it's still in print. But it's awful anecdotal, and it's a little bit on the melodramatic side, and more study has been done since Lord wrote his 2 books on the Titanic. And Walter Lord blurbs this book. This is by Daniel Allen Butler, and it's called Unsinkable. With this cover, which I had never seen before. Just delightful. Very understated. And as soon as I saw it, I realized that I'd given away my last copy of Unsinkable a long time ago to somebody who wanted a really good book on the Titanic. Well, this is the one. One of the photos in here, I've got to show it to you. The caption says that you can't tell because it's not in color, but right along the base of this iceberg is a streak of red paint. This is the iceberg that sank the Titanic. Photographed the next day with red paint on it because the Titanic had just been commissioned. Everything on it was fresh and new, and the impact was enough to smear the iceberg that did the deed. This is the thing that did it. The photograph of the iceberg. Let's see here. This is almost certainly the iceberg struck by the Titanic. It was photographed by the chief steward of the liner, Prince Aldebert, on the morning of April 15th, 1912, just a few miles south of where the Titanic went down. The steward hadn't yet heard about the Titanic. What caught his attention was the smear of red paint along the base of the berg. Oh, just chilling. No pun intended. Very happy to find this again. I studied the Titanic disaster forwards and back, and I'm glad to have this book back, no matter how many I might have or not have. Then this next one is a rebuy, and a very recent rebuy. I got this thing at the Brattle just recently. I hauled it, talked about it a bit on this channel. And then one of you said, I love that book. I had it when I was a kid. I'll never find it where I am. Would you please send me that copy? The person who asked was very abashed. But of course my answer was yes. I said yes. So I sent it off right away, and I told myself the Brattle will provide. But I didn't think the Brattle would provide in a matter of months, and it did. This is by John Dennis. That is our author on the back. And it's this. It's his complete guide to bird feeding, which has a ton of original illustrations, and also a ton of, see it, it's got spot illustrations all throughout. Also a ton of bird natural history and bird lore. Obviously, you don't need a book this big to guide someone to feeding birds in all seasons. You don't need to do that. And I saw another copy at the Brattle. Fantastic. And in addition, this is even better than the copy that I had because somebody tipped in a whole bunch of stuff here. There's a little pamphlet on backyard birding. I'll be exploring all of this. There's some one of those little detachable nature files, this time on a barn owl, and a bunch of other stuff, all scattered throughout here. So I'm actually kind of glad. I wouldn't have even bothered to pull this off the card and looked at it if I hadn't needed a replacement copy, and I'm glad that I did, because I want this copy more than I wanted the first one. Then this next one's a perfect example. I say the Brattle will provide all the time, which means it's my way of saying the Brattle's turnover is so high that anything that I want, I will end up seeing there. But sometimes I say the Brattle will provide as a certainty, and sometimes I say it as a hopeless prayer, where it seems the odds just seem to be totally stacked against it. And this connects with one of those times. One time when Mark Richardson and the Bean and I were up in Vermont, and we were visiting the Richardsons. And of course, when we do that, over the old house in Vermont, Mark and I make a priority of going out on book hunting expeditions, since we can take the Bean along. So I'm not sitting there in the car worried the whole time. If she's right in my lap, then I'm game to go anywhere. And you might think, in fact, quite a few of you have asked me over the years, well, what happens when you and Mark are shopping for used books in the same place and you see the book that you both want? What happens then? Do you fight like cats and dogs? Is there a rancor and ill will? And the answer to that is no. Even when it's something that really catches Mark's eye, he's completely generous. His first instinct when that happens is, oh, do you want it? Even if you know that he really wants it himself. So I've learned to be a little delicate so that I don't just take advantage of that. And one time when we went to the Mighty Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut, he made a find at one of the Book Barn's locations that, oh my God, I wanted so bad to just yoink it. And I also it was a situation where I wanted it so bad that I didn't notice it until we were at the checkout. And my first response was, oh, maybe there's another copy on the shelf. And if I'd said that to him at the time, he would have known how bad I wanted it and would have given it to me. And I didn't want that because I knew he wanted it. So instead, in my head, I said, well, the Brattle will provide. Never guessing that they would, and they did. They did. It's this. This is a critical companion to the Aubrey and Maturin novels of Patrick O'Brian. It's got essays about Aubrey, essays about Maturin, essays about the books, critical appreciations, continuations. It's got an introduction by O'Brian himself. A must-have for Patrick O'Brian fans. I never thought I would see this ever again in my life, anywhere except in Mark's own collection, and here it is. So the Brattle will provide. It's just incredible. And then this next one is a book we've seen before. Let me see. Do I have a date in this? No. Well, anyway. We haven't seen this book before. We've seen this author before. The author is Holbrook Jackson, and we saw his book, A Book About Books, which is a great exploration of book history and the book love and whatnot. But at the time that I hauled that book, I got that, I think, from the Brattle. At the time that I hauled that, I said that he had a great magnum opus on the whole subject of books about books, book collectors, book reading, all the different types of collections, all the different uses of libraries. And that someday I would hope to see that book. And I found it. It's Anatomy of Bibliomania by Holbrook Jackson. This huge thing. This is a huge priority for me. I'm going to read it this weekend with pencil in hand. I'm going to carefully annotate this. I'm so happy to finally have a copy of this book. It is one of the great books for my Books About Books bookcase in the other room. Just so happy to find this. Absolutely. I don't think ordinarily when I find a book by an author who's not in print anymore, I think, well, maybe whoever sold this to the Brattle sold lots of books by this author. But it's been a long time since we saw a book about books. So I don't think these are part of the same collection at all. I don't think I have a chance. I would love to find 10 more Holbrook Jackson books, but I don't think I have a chance of that happening. I was very happy to grab this thing. And that was the Brattle. Aside from all the stuff that I can't show you. All the stuff that's in another pile somewhere else that I can't show you. But there is one other thing. I hauled all these things and all plenty of other things back from the Brattle to a package on the doorstep, sitting forlornly. And it's from one of you. It is a violation of rule number 1. I think someone sent me a book. It's a big wooden package, so I thought we'd just open it here, since I've already done the mail for today. Let's see what this is. What one of you sent me. Oh, right, yes. Oh, somebody not only sent me this, but warned me that you were sending it to me. Okay, great. This is one of those huge DK volumes that I love so much. I love Dorian Kindersley. I just love them as a publisher. And this is the XMen, the ultimate guide to the XMen. I don't think that refers to the ultimate XMen, although this thing might be old enough so that that is true. Do you have any non-ultimate XMen in here? Oh, yes, we do. Okay, so that's just a pun. That's just a play on words. For a long time, Marvel had a alternate universe X-Men title called Ultimate X-Men. That's that Wolverine was a teenager in Ultimate X-Men. And that must have been an ongoing concern when this thing came out. But this is actually about all incarnations of the X-Men, starting all the way with Xavier's Mansion. There is a cutout of Xavier's Mansion. So there'll be stills from the movies and whatnot scattered throughout here. DK makes fantastic digital productions. This is going to be a feast. A lot of fun to go through. Thank you very much, the sender. So there you go. Used books of 2 different origins. We have the ultimate companion to the X-Men. We have Anatomy of Bibliomania. We have this critical study of Patrick O'Brian. Incredible that I would find it. We have a Bird Feeder's Companion Guide. Try number 2. We have Unsinkable, the best 1-volume book on the Titanic disaster. We have Robert Louis Stevenson's Edinburgh Days. And we have On the Trail of Stevenson by an author with an original illustrator just going to all the places that Stevenson went to. So that's my used book haul for today. Plus a thunderous, almost cartoonish amount of background noise that I'm just talking over. I'm hoping that you can hear me anyway in the course of the video. Just thunderous, just absurd, like you were drunk level of background noise. I can't filter it out, and I can't close the windows when it's this hot. And it's going to be this hot for the rest of time. The temperature's not going to dip. The temperature's going to maybe dip into the high 60s at night, Fahrenheit. But this is going to be the way of things from now on. So I have to have the windows open. But I'm trusting it did not eclipse the fun of all of these books. So I'm gonna wrap this up. No Brattle trips this weekend. So this is gonna have to hold you over for a while. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.